Food. It is one of the most essential elements of human life. Whether it is plants, animals, or humans, everybody needs food. Since the evolution of mankind and evolution of humans, uh, we have become intelligent enough to grow, process food, do stuff with it, etc. So we, the Homo sapiens or the humans, are at the center of the food chain in terms of drastically impacting the growth, food patterns, habits, and the related aspects and implications on climate change, forestation, so on and so forth. Apart from these angles, there are certain angles which involve the social sector, in the sense that while in pockets of the world there is abundance of food, and while there are pockets in the world in which people are malnourished and go hungry to bed every night. In this larger context, the food wastage and its implications and its incidence hold the key. Hello everyone, welcome to GS Core. My name is Abhishiekh Saxena and I am a faculty at GS Core. And in today's special report session, we'll talk about United Nations Environment Programme Food Waste Index Report 2021. So let us get into the thick of this particular report and see its various aspects. The aim. As the name suggests, the aim is to measure the magnitude of food wastage, and that is on a global scale. Okay, it will involve food wastage through all the possible channels. For example, household waste, retail waste. So you have products getting expired every day at retail shops, and the food service related wastage. Okay, so this particular index tries and gauge the food wastage across continents and across income levels. Across continents and across income levels. The report will also delve into the substantive aspects, in the sense that across continents and across income levels is significance, as you will see when you will do the analysis of the report, that while there was a belief that countries with far more abundance, countries which are richer, are contributing more to the food wastage, while that more was touted to be very more, or rather a big chunk, you will find that the wastage of food items is more or less on an equal footing with regards to countries across continents and across income levels, with obviously certain minor marginal variations and increase and decreases. But you will find that the trend is global, and it is not something which has a drastic difference when it comes to developed and developing or underdeveloped, right? The Food and Agriculture Organization also has a view on this index, rather related to food wastage. So it says that 690 million people, this is just to show you the extent of hunger, 690 million people were hungry in the year 2019. Okay, and as you relate it with contemporary developments like COVID-19, this number is set to rise. Okay, Then sectors covered, I've already told you, household, retail, and services. So by this particular graphic, you will be able to appreciate that this particular index takes into a very comprehensive view of the food wastage. Okay. Now let us look at some key findings of this particular report. So this graphic basically details the findings of the index. So it says that 931 million tons of food waste was generated in the year 2019. Okay, 61% of which came from households. So you'll realize, while the conventional wisdom would say that most of the food wastage happens at processing units or services, but a lot of us, a lot of households are wasting food. That is humongous. 61%, 26% from food service, and merely 13% from retail. Okay. And if we look into account the global food production, it says that 17% of the total global food production may be wasted. Right? Second, the myth that richer countries are wasting far more quantities of food vis-a-vis the developed and developing. See, it's all about the distribution. So while there might be a underdeveloped country in which it has pockets of abundance, and then a large area where there is no food, and this pocket of abundance might have enough food for the entire country, but the failure to distribute, a failure for food to reach the entire country, or access to food, is a major issue, or can be a major issue. So this can be one scenario, while there can be other scenario wherein the whole country is in deficit with regards to the availability of food. So the wastage is a thing which might not have a uniform distribution. So that is the key aspect to be understood here. Okay. So another key finding is that the household per capita food wastage generation is found to be broadly similar across country income groups. Okay. Suggesting that action on food wastage is equally relevant in high, upper middle class and lower middle income countries. So the action against food wastage is needed across the profile. It is not needed, let us say, in only developed countries, because the report, the hard facts, the data suggests this. In contrary to the conventional belief that developed countries need more action on food wastage, that they waste more. Okay. Then it says that previous estimates in this regard have in a way underestimated the impact. Okay. Food waste at consumer level and food service appears to be more than twice the previous FAO estimates. Okay. Next, also it in a way points out to certain limitations, wherein it says that there is insufficient data on the edible fraction of food waste to allow to compare analysis across country and income groups. At the same time, inedible parts like bones, pits, eggshells, etc. predominate in lower income countries. There is sufficient total food wastage in these areas for circular approaches or other food wastage diversion strategies to be important. So it in a way says that yes, while there is an acceptance of food wastage, there is insufficient data on edible food fraction. Okay. All right. Then some of the other key findings that while we talk about data on food wastage, that is the household, service, and retail, uh, a lot of countries did not had the data prepared. So only about 54 countries. So while this estimate might point towards a direction, it is not a very exact estimate, that only 54 countries were analyzed while preparing the index. Okay, all right. So only 54 countries were analyzed. Now let us move forward to the food wastage index measurement approach. So obviously, since it is an empirical exercise to measure the food wastage, it has to have an approach. So let us look at the approach. So the level 1 talks about modeling and extrapolation. Modeling and extrapolation of the data for the member states. So while some member states might have a very exact data, some member state might have sample data which needs to be extrapolated. Okay, then obviously it provides an approximate estimate. It is not sufficient for tracking purposes but gives a broad idea. Then level 2 talks about direct measurement of food waste, sufficiently accurate for tracking. So at various levels it is analyzed. Third levels, additional information and disaggregation. So there might be certain noises in the data, some incorrect, some impurities in the data. So those are segregated, validated, revalidated. Okay, and once we have a data which is not impure or which does not have certain impurities, we can form a food wastage prevention strategy. We can form a food wastage prevention strategy. For example, let us say clear-cut distinction between edible, non-edible. So you will see that from here on it is getting complex. So while this was fairly simple, this was a little complex, and this is again getting more complex. Okay, for example, parts, gender, all right, gender, and reporting of manufacturing of food wastage which is not reported by Food and Agriculture Organization. So it is very important that the tracking mechanism, the tracing mechanism, bringing in the units of food wastage, whether those are commercial units, retail units, or household, into the net to feed the exact data is of vital significance here. And while developing countries, developed countries might have a very systematic mechanisms, developing countries might not have that sort of mechanism. For example, India. So you have a lot of people, hawkers especially, who sell stuff, food items, snacks, right, chaat, and they also waste food, but that is something which is not coming into the net. So the estimates are inaccurate, to say the best, but the whatever estimates, whatever little number crunching is going on here still gives us a trend that food wastage is substantial, and that food wastage needs to be countered with a counter food wastage strategy by every responsible country. So that is the larger takeaway. Okay, that is the larger takeaway. Okay, why that is the larger takeaway? Because without wastage, see, you will find that food wastage has a cost. It has a cost on environment, okay, apart from monetary cost. Then it has social cost. in the sense that while some people will waste food, others will go hungry to bed. So therefore, it is far more important now to develop a counter strategy. And another reason to develop such a counter strategy is sustainable development. Sustainable development. Sustainable development goal 12.3 talks about a commitment to halve the food wastage at retail and consumer level, and across supply chain, Okay. So obviously sustainable development goal, and to reach this goal would demand a counter food wastage strategy. So this strategy would involve rules, procedures, protocols, right? Measurement and standardization of criteria to measure the food wastage. Okay. At the same time, it will have an evidence based approach. When I say evidence based approach, we are talking about empiricism here, that there should be empirical data to support the counter approaches, and obviously to reorient and continuously improve the counter strategy. All right. So that is why it is important. Now, food loss index. So it is developed by Food and Agriculture Organization. Okay. So food waste index or food loss index covers the later stages of food journey of waste occurring at various places. So that is an info for you, that there is a food loss index as well. Now there are issues and challenges with regards to the food wastage. So Sustainable Development Goal 12 target 3 would be missed if we do not employ a counter strategy, and that too fast. Okay. Then environmental impact of food wastage. Okay. Because you will see that 8 to 10% of the global greenhouse emissions are related to food, whether you are growing food, right, processing it, transporting it, okay, logistics, so on and so forth. It is all related to, it is all having a footprint on the environment. Okay. And I need not emphasize the social and economic impact, in the sense that you will find that around $940 billion worth of food gets wasted or leads to economic losses due to wastage of food. Okay. At the same time, social cost, I have talked about that, while some people waste, other people go hungry, and especially this gets aggravated in times of economic distress, health issues, natural calamities, so on and so forth. Okay. Another major challenge is non-inclusion of nationally determined contributions. Contributions. So while the Paris Accord or the Paris Climate Change Conference, there were certain nationally determined contributions, this aspect has been ignored. Again, lack of proper data. Just like we discussed that there are only 54 countries whose data is analyzed. Okay. Then the highest burden at the consumer. So it is not some government agency wasting food. It is not the inefficient logistics. It is the household, consumer, which is the biggest contributor to the food wastage. Okay. Then at the same time, just like we had limited data, we had limited parameters. So more parameters, more variables should be analyzed to determine the real impact of the food wastage. Okay. Now let us look at the biggest burden here. Okay. Biggest burden, that is households, they waste the most. So just some statistics that almost 5.3 billion tons food is available in a year, and 931 million tons gets wasted. Okay. So if you will find that per capita annual food wastage is around 121 kgs. So you are almost wasting around 300 grams of food a day, right? And in that you will find that 74 kgs is contributed by households, 32 kgs food service, and 15 kgs retail, right? So that is huge. So we have a big problem at our hands, and then there are certain solutions, that is inclusion of food systems in the nationally determined targets. Okay. Then obviously community awareness, again innovative ideas in the sense that we should develop mechanisms that food does not go waste. It ultimately reaches the beneficiary, whether it is supply chain, food banks, right, industry, retail industry, and let us say NGO tie-ups. So innovative practices wherein food at the end of the day does not go waste. So you will realize that there are many NGOs working in this direction, wherein food from various hotels and banquet halls in the wedding season especially gets collected by these NGOs, and so that they can feed the destitute and poor people. Okay, so though they are micro level interventions, but if done at mass, if done at scale, they can substantially curtail down the food wastage, right? And I need not emphasize that this will have multiple effects, in the sense that while the food wastage will get reduced, the health parameters related to malnutrition, related to stunting, related to people dying of hunger will also get impacted in a positive manner. Okay. Then again, food wastage, it saves. The counter to food wastage will lead to saving of money, not just by the businesses, by individuals and households, but also by farmers and companies. Okay. At the same time, need to work on sustainable development targets. So while this is a target in isolation, right, there are multiple linkages, for example malnutrition, etc. So we need to work on all the fronts and involve innovative tie-ups of strategies here to counter the larger menace. Okay. Now once we have looked at the broader picture of the significance of the food wastage, certain technicalities involved in the measurement, the repercussions, the issues, the pros and cons. Now let us look at some of the key terms. And these are some of the standard definitions. So what is a food, right? So just to get it technically right, any substance which is processed, semi-processed, okay, or raw, that is intended for human consumption, okay. So it might be a drinking substance, okay, or a substance that is used in manufacture or treatment of food. Then food loss, okay. So these are all the crop and livestock, human edible, human edible, commodity, quantities, quantities that directly or indirectly or indirectly completely exit, completely exit, completely exit the post harvest supply chain, post harvest supply chain, by being discarded or by not getting utilized, by being discarded and not getting utilized. So it is easy for us to determine what would be the losses. By loss hoga due to, let us say, poor transportation. So this in a way gives you causes of food wastage, or some of the causes of food wastage: poor transportation, poor storage, poor transportation, poor storage, poor processing. Okay. Then food surplus. Food surplus. So for the purpose of food wastage index, for the purpose of food wastage index, food surplus is that is redistributed for consumption. So you will know that food surplus is not equal to always food wastage. For example, let us say some food can be processed for cattle. So you have stale chapatis, etc., which you might feed to cattle and they are perfectly fine with it. Good people. Okay. Then food waste. Food waste. So this basically denotes the edible or the consumable which are removed from the human food chain. Okay. Which are completely removed from the food chain. Basically the food items which do not get utilized, neither for processing, for post processing, from all the sources, households, food processing centers, etc. Then again, when we talk about waste disposal, we talk about not just the food wastage but other wastage as well, which we often refer to as municipal solid waste. Okay. So basically it is the solid waste which are emanating from various agencies, let us say households, hospitals, households, hospitals, office buildings, schools, or in general we can say institutions. That will involve colleges, institution like ours, yours. Okay. So it includes bulky, bulky kind of a waste, trash, let us say from garden maintenance, from medical treatments, paramedical waste, so on and so forth. So that is a different kind of waste, and it might include within itself food wastage. Okay, suppose an edible item has been infected with fungus due to being stale, so you might throw it in the dustbin and it might act as a solid waste. So it is a food wastage in the sense, but it is a part of the solid waste, right? So these were some of the technical aspects regarding food and some related terms, because they might conflict in the sense that one might be replaced for other in general discussion, but technically yes, they hold a different meaning. So this session was about food wastage, and you will find a PDF, a downloadable link in the description and the comment section of this particular video. So let's call this session a close, and I'll meet you in the next special report section soon. Thank you.